Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to the Luminary Podcast. I'm so excited to be here with Alicia again, and we are on our second interview. And we are going to be talking today to the Andromedans, who are very mysterious, but also very friendly and loving and really eager to get into contact with many of their starseeds, many of their agents on the ground that they have here, of which probably a lot of you are deeply connected to the Andromedans. So we've got our interviewer here, Alicia. Alicia, how are you doing today? How are you doing this week?
I'm so good. I'm excited to talk to the Andromedans and I have my questions ready to go. I know I mentioned before, but last time it was just so exciting and there was so much energy and I feel like I've had time to really take all that in and come back now with some different questions. And yeah, I'm just excited.
Yeah, me too, for sure. It was definitely a wild experience. Channeling, I think there's 8 different Pleiadians that are on that council. And they're holding like the frequency. So it's so important for everyone to know about councils because we are going to be talking to a member of the Andromedan High Council today. And they are channeling and transmitting all the way from Andromeda, which is our neighbor galaxy. And I'll talk more about that in just a moment. But what's so important to know about these council members is that they're actually social memory complexes. You guys have heard me teach about that a lot on the podcast, how as we go through towards the end of fourth density, fifth density, sixth density, we are combining consciousness with our soul family. Starts with our inner circle and then it branches out from there because we realize through our own evolution that we're actually stronger together, smarter and wiser together. And so we combine our life force, our energy, our memory, all of our Akashic records so that we can easily learn from all of our past and then we come together. So these council members are not individual souls like we are. We are highly, highly individuated. We're like a single cell of a giant organism, whereas they're more like a whole hand, a whole arm. There's so many different energies that are contributing their, I don't want to say their life force because they can still have individual experiences as individual souls, but they are combining a lot of their energy together that creates the council member. So it's never really just one soul, it's always this massive combination. So as we were channeling the 8, Pleiadians on the Council of Light, they make up and represent the majority of Pleiadians that exist in our galaxy. So it was almost like we were channeling an entire starseed civilization. It's quite a bit.
That's what it felt like. By the time I was done, that's what it felt like. And not in a bad way, but like just a lot of energy. It was crazy.
Yeah, definitely. So we are going to be talking to an Andromedan council member, divine feminine being, and she's been hanging out with me for the past couple of days since we got the download that we were going to be doing this interview together. And I want to share some things about Andromedans for those who might know a little bit about them, and you might get a little confused sometimes. There are 2 different groups of Andromedans that are often referred to as the starseeds that are in our galaxy. So we do have a local group of Andromedans on the Andromeda star, and that is more of a base for Andromedans. They sent a group here into this galaxy, and that group wanted to stay here, wanted to be here. They have no plans of leaving, and they bring a very high vibrational frequency with them from Andromeda. The other group of Andromedans in our universe, at least that I know about, is the entire Andromedan Galaxy, which is right next to the Milky Way Galaxy. And it's considered by a lot of different galactic psychics to be kind of like our mother galaxy, that a lot of the energy that the Elohim would have brought to the Milky Way Galaxy would have been from Andromeda originally, and they would have started taking different tiny bits of Andromeda and using that to seed the Milky Way Galaxy. So Andromedan Galaxy, I've had the honor of being able to channel for a lot of different clients when I was doing sessions. And it's one of the most beautiful places that you could ever channel. It is the definition of etheric. Everything there is like pastel colors, and like the planets are like magical woodland forests, and like they glow from within the earth. So if you think of like a lot of the fairy tales and fairy stories and very like magical lights and beings with wings, all of that is everyday life in Andromeda, in their galaxy, which is a far cry from our Milky Way galaxy, where you tend to just meet, where we do have beautiful planets like Gaia, but most of the beings are very humanoid. You don't come across a lot of beings that have wings or that are all different shapes and sizes, down to very, very small to very, very large. We don't have palaces made out of crystal like they do in central Andromeda. Crystals are one of the most sacred. I don't really want to say objects, but they would call it like a conduit. And so they use a lot of crystals there, and they probably have many more than we even have here on Earth. I even brought one to this interview that's like a giant crystal that just always reminds me of Andromeda. And they would build entire cities and like skyscrapers out of crystal. The other thing that's very important to remember about Andromeda is that it is not as dense as the Earth that we live on here. Most of those planets are very high in the dimensions. Even when they were going through third and fourth density consciousness, they still managed to keep very high frequency and really only dipped down to 3D for very short points in their history, and then immediately kind of made their ascent back up into the higher dimensions. So if you're living in a 1112D planet, creating a skyscraper out of crystal is not considered something that would be weird or too heavy or too dense. It would be very light. It would be very effortless. It would seem natural and normal. So there's lots of crystals, there's lots of pastel colors, beautiful glowing lights, and a lot of these things, for those of you who are watching and maybe you have a connection with Andromeda, you might find yourself dreaming about it later on. They love to connect with us in the dream worlds. How are you feeling, Alicia?
Like excited about it. It sounds like so nice and warm and colorful. I mean, like, I feel like this is for like, dare I say, a Disney crowd. Like, it just sounds like a nice fairy tale place. And I hope I end up there in my dreams.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. And I was thinking about, and I don't know if this will be in your questions, but I was thinking about, what their catalyst was, because we all have to have like dark matter catalysts. And the Andromedans, it was really like objects, like dark objects. We hear these like fairy tales about like, um, was it like the dark crystal or like the black cauldron? Those are all like remnants from Andromeda. Really, their catalyst in the dark energy was that they love to use these objects and the energy of these objects. And sometimes that would go a little south, and it would become like a dark object that might threaten their planet or their species. And so they had to figure out ways to overcome it and how to ascend through consciousness with that kind of catalyst. So it's very different, and it is kind of like storybook, fairy tale like. All of our beings, like elementals, all came from Andromeda, which we'll of course talk to them about. But it's so different than here, where it feels like here in the Milky Way, it's like a constant like mosh pit brawl. Like we're always in some sort of crazy war, or there's like all these different species here. It's like Star Wars. There's all of this different stuff going on. And really, when you get into the Andromedan stories, it's really like there was a dark crystal. And then we had to rise to the occasion to overcome it. And it's beautiful, but there is so much wisdom and so much love to receive from them, and they've played a huge role in our planet. The last thing I want to say about them before we get into it is just that one of the reasons there are not more Andromedans in the Milky Way galaxy is because, for those of you who are following along with kind of both of these series that I'm doing, the Galactic Wars and the interviews, is that during the Galactic Wars, after the draconian forces annihilated one of the Lyran planets, they'd been working on destroying the Stargate that connected the Milky Way Galaxy to the central Andromedan Galaxy and made it very easy for beings to come and go from there. And they knew that we were getting a lot of high frequency vibrations through that Stargate. And so they set about destroying it. I haven't channeled the full story of how they destroyed it. And so maybe they'll mention it today. Maybe it'll come up in the Galactic War series. But that's the reason why there aren't more Andromedans and why there's kind of this lone, Andromeda star where there are beings from Andromeda who love to be here, but it also makes them one of the smallest groups. And so Andromedan starseeds are known for being really rare on Earth, even though a lot of us have a connection with Andromeda or at least spent time there before the gate was destroyed. And we would have already been back into the Milky Way Galaxy by the time it was destroyed. So that is a little background on the Andromedans. Any questions from you, Alicia?
No, I don't think so. I'm just excited to learn more and dive in.
Yeah, let's do it. All right. Hello, dear one, Alicia. We are delighted to be here speaking and communicating with you now. We are hailing all of you from Andromeda, from Central Andromeda, as she has been describing just now. And we are greeting you with divine love and divine light. It is our greatest honor to be in communication with you. Again, direct communication, which has been somewhat of a challenge in recent years to reconnect with each and every one of you, our beloveds on earth, who we are sending you divine love and divine light of the highest octave, highest frequency to assist you in your natural and organic ascension during this time. We thank you for this opportunity, and we delight to communicate with you now.
Thank you so much for being here. My first question for you is, how would you describe Central Andromeda? What would it look like to humans?
To your eyes, it may appear as pure starlight. To our eyes, however, observing through a higher frequency or a higher dimension, as you call it, we are primarily 10 through 12th dimension as you understand it, although there is some translation issues between the dimensions with the humans on Earth and what many galactic beings may understand as dimensions and frequencies. Please keep this in mind. However, through your understanding, and many of you have been studying diligently and regaining access to your divine memory, the 10th through 12th dimension is primarily where we reside in central Andromeda. Very good, Alicia. You are understanding that there are vast spaces and solar systems and parts of our galaxy that vary greatly. And so in central Andromeda, this tends to be our metropolis, if you will. There are great cities here built of crystal, or as we would prefer to say, starlight, built of elements, the earth elements, so that we are always remaining connected to them, no matter how far we build into the sky. And this is not done through the deepest density that you are experiencing, but rather we began these projects in late fourth density, and now we reside primarily in sixth density. If we were to translate exactly across time and space to where you are located in your dimension and your experience, primarily now in sixth density consciousness, and our cities are hubs for Andromedan beings from all areas across our galaxy to come and to go and to unite with us or to branch off and have their own experiences. Our memory complexes are somewhat galactic, as in the entire galaxy is involved, as opposed to more species oriented. whereas we are much more varied in our memory complexes. And so many different species join in. They may come to a planet and decide that they would like to stay for a while, and then they may branch off and go to another part of the galaxy and have different experiences. But here in central Andromeda, they will experience something quite like a metropolis. It is quite busy here. Our colors are varied from the Milky Way Galaxy, whereas you experience many of the deeper and darker colors. We do not. We experience many more of the lighter colors, colors that many of you have associated with the angelic frequencies. This has been one of the mistranslations as we have tried to connect with you, many of us being mistaken for the beloved angelics who assist us all. However, we are delighted to be confused with them. This is a great honor. And so you will find many of these colors in our metropolises towards the center of our galaxy. We have found that working in a spiral motion and allowing our energy to spiral out from the center of our galaxy allows us to create harmony and harmonics that otherwise would not have existed if we were to have factioned ourselves off, separated, and gone against the natural spiral geometric form of which your galaxy also exists. This is perhaps a lesson that many of you might remember for later times, later lifetimes in your journey as you bring harmony to your own galaxy. There is great nature here. However, it will not be the same nature that you would experience on Earth. The nature that we experience here is highly etheric. It is made mostly of light. It carries high light frequencies, geometric codes that allow us to experience its everlasting beauty. It's somewhat supernatural from your perspective. However, we encourage many of you to remember that perhaps Andromeda is your home. And this is what you will experience in Central Andromeda. Lastly, we will say that the species, again, that you will encounter here are varied from all across our galaxy, for we do not differentiate or disallow any of the species from having any kind of galactic or psychic travel should they wish to relocate their energy or whatever species or body they are inhabiting, or simply their psychic travels, which would be to come here and visit with us telepathically.
Could you tell us a little bit more about some of the different species from Andromeda?
Of course, there are many millions. Our most recent estimation for you in your terms would be approximately 2.6 million different species reside here as self-aware beings in the galaxy of Andromeda. There are various shapes, sizes, different templates, for we are not creatively bound at all. We allow all of the species and beings, and we encourage them to be creatively free when they are stepping into their creator lifetimes. For many of you, this will be coming in fourth density, that you will learn deeper about how to create through the different densities, first, second, and then eventually third, where you will create your own self-aware species. And so with many of these species, there are varied forms. We will describe some of the ones that perhaps are more familiar or that were carried to Earth in the memory codes of Andromedans when we were seeding your planet. The most familiar one to you would be the winged being. Wings are a symbol of the freedom that the soul experiences through ascension, through the growth in consciousness, and as we reach towards the light, as we reach towards the one infinite creator, the mother and father of us all. These winged beings are a great delight to many of you who have not experienced winged beings in your part of the Milky Way Galaxy. Yes, in your part and your location, the beings that you have come across so far. But there are, in fact, winged beings inside the Milky Way Galaxy. But rather, right now, they are somewhat on the outskirts. These winged beings come in many shapes and sizes and many forms. Although we do have the template of the two-legged creature, two arms, a centralized head, there are some beings here that have many arms, that have many legs, and they are also self-aware beings. You may find some of these a little startling for those of you who are not accustomed to seeing creatures that are not like you. However, let it be known this is a great opportunity to learn about the differences and the ways that we all sing the song of the one infinite creator together. We have some beings here that you may consider more animal like. There are bear like beings here that are also self aware, that have entire planets to themselves. They come in all different shapes and sizes and colors. And then there are many what you have experienced in your world, to translate it, would be somewhat like insectoid beings. We do have entire frog like beings, entire planets that are filled with frog like beings who are also self aware. Some of the mantis beings have sent their templates and creations here. This would have been many millions of your years ago. However, those are also seated in different parts of Andromeda. Whereas in your galaxy, you see differentiation and variation as different humanoid forms. We see this more as entire physicalities that are completely different. Brains and hearts that are located in different areas of the body than what would be considered normal in your experience so far. However, as you are connecting with this council of light, and we will let you know it is just a single one of us communicating, for it takes a great bandwidth in order to send our signal so far away. However, this council is comprised of semi-humanoid beings. You may consider us that way, for we too appear with two legs and two arms, one elongated cranium. This is normal in the late fourth and early fifth densities of consciousness, for your brains too shall grow. Elongated eyes, which was one of our gifts to the templates when they were seeding the different races on Earth, and you will find the elongated eyes also on the Andromedans that are local to you. However, you will find a great differentiation with our skin. Our skin, though quite light, thinner, much thinner than yours, would not be suitable at all for your planet, for it is much too warm where you are. We experience a more distilled form of light, much of our light not coming solely from suns and from stars, but rather from within the planet that we inhabit. We draw up the light, the inner light of the planet, and use it to light our way. And also, we use it to infuse our bodies with light. And so, the forms that we have chosen that may appear to some of you is that we have a somewhat fish like or iridescent skin. Although some might appear to be as scales, they are not scales in the way that a subaquatic life form may need. Ours are rather for creative experience, joy, our own self determination, how we prefer to appear to others. There is an iridescence to our skin. We delight and joy in the form of the rainbow, or as we like to say, the prism. It is a symbol of the oneness of the I am. When you look upon this symbol, let it be known it is you. It is the refraction of pure light. And so we delight to appear in this way occasionally as well.
And how do Andromedans connect with Earth?
There are three primary ways. The first is the souls that have Andromedan codes or templates soul codes or templates, not physical. Soul codes are templates who may have spent any time in our galaxy. They would then have a certain access or connection to our records, Akashic as you call them, and this would follow them to that planet. So, those of you who consider yourselves Andromedan connected would have access to these templates, and we would be able to upload higher frequencies this way. The second way is through our local Andromedans. Our locals are deep at work in the Milky Way Galaxy and doing all that they can to support stargates, the unification of systems, starseeds. If they are assigned to be their guides, then they will be connecting this way through telepathy, through dream work, through dimensional work, and also through the realms as well. It is not necessary for the Andromedans to be incarnated on Andromeda in your local Milky Way galaxy for them to be guiding any of the Andromedan seeded stars on your planet. The third way is the way that we are connecting with you now, which is through a somewhat narrow bandwidth and across great distance. We are sending this frequency and communication. It is through the vessel, the one called Annie, raising of her vibration, that we are able to make a cleaner and more clear communication. However, at this time, we are centralizing much of our energy to be able to do this, connecting with you now. As more of you exist in a higher frequency on the planet Earth, our beloved sister Gaia, more of us will be able to connect directly with you in much the same manner, and we greatly desire to do so. We have much to teach you, much for you to remember about higher dimensional work, working with crystals, working with the earth, and creation. These are the three primary ways that we are connecting with you now.
And in what ways are Andromedans more technologically advanced than humans?
This is an interesting question, for we no longer use any sort of technology that you might consider technology. However, we understand your meaning. We did not choose in our evolution to go the way of using light force for the technology that many of you are familiar with, but rather we chose to use light, working with crystals and the earth, what might appear to you as energetic technology. And then we chose to create through thought form. Many of our creations, our cities, our places of gathering and delight, are created entirely through thought. Perhaps it will make more coherence for you if we simply state that we did not experience technology the way that you and many of your star families in the Milky Way Galaxy are experiencing it, but rather we chose dimensional work and ascension, thus being able to create and manipulate other energetic forms entirely through heart-brain coherence, creating a sense of cohesion and allowing us to move and manipulate matter in that way. Although we do have some light ships, these are created entirely through heart-brain coherence and intention and belong solely to the individual operating the ship. Many of these ships are only being used at this time for the local Andromedans in the Milky Way Galaxy. This is perhaps an interesting time to let you know that across each galaxy, the Logos infuses a different tenor, if you will. The tenor is like a divine essence. Our divine essence in Andromeda was that we desired greatly to be reunited with the higher dimensional frequencies and the light of which we are. The tenor in the Milky Way Galaxy is known for being somewhat more tumultuous, and thus it is a great place to learn in advance for a soul that is quite brave, gallant, strong, and curious. Many of you display these qualities daily, and that is why you have come here to be a part of interesting stories, stories of galactic wars, stories of interspecies wars, but also stories of battles within your own heart and the desire to reach for love, to be loved in return. We experience these fractals of the story, the frequencies. However, we do not experience many of them, or did not in our histories, in the same physical manner that you do. And as more of you are connected with other galaxies, you will find that the tenor of the galaxy changes from one to another. There are many different songs being sung in this universe, and all of them are a delight to the creator. And so there must be some more dramatic notes. And that is what you are experiencing in the Milky Way Galaxy. However, some of you have experienced the notes of Andromeda, and so it distresses you greatly to be lost from the memory that you, in fact, chose to have these different experiences, the drama. But you will find that there are even more dramatic places to be located and to have experiences in this universe. You are not, by far and away, you are not the most dramatic or by any means the darkest part of this universe, but rather you are a place of rich experiences.
Thank you. I want to go back a little bit and ask if you could tell us a little bit about how Andromeda evolved to be the galaxy it is now, assuming it's much older than Gaia.
Yes, it is somewhat older than the galaxy you inhabit now. This is not yet observed by your scientists, but each galaxy begets other galaxies. And so we have beget 5 different galaxies that surround us at this time. Some have drifted a little bit further, some are closer, and we consider you one of our branches or creations, a creation that stemmed from the heart of Andromeda, and we also stemmed from the heart of a different galaxy at one point in this universe's history. The evolution of a galaxy is in many layers and many parts. The logos itself will choose from a high octave to create. And in our universe, the spiral form galaxy is seen as quite suitable. In fact, perhaps one day your scientists will observe that our universe moves in a spiral motion. Any of you who are desiring to let them know, please do. We move in a spiral motion. Yes, we are ever expanding light. However, our galaxy was created through light and love, the same as your galaxy was. The Logos moves with intention and the desire to create. And it moves with no judgment and no regrets of what it creates from this highest octave. The highest octave would be that the galaxy itself would begin to form. The energy, which is not perceptible to you in your current life forms, would be moving in the geometric spiral pattern. Then each planet would be born. This is the suboctave of the Logos, a suboctave of creation. As these planets are being formed and these systems within, there are planets that are observed by the different creators, celestial beings. Some of them you may call and refer to as Elohim, although this is not a word that is understood by all, and we would prefer to use the term celestial beings. These celestial beings would observe through their own divine intelligence which planets would be the most suitable for life forms. And then the process of first, second, and third density would begin. It takes many millions of your years as you experience them for this to occur. I will tell you, however, I will somewhat speed us up to specifically the more interesting parts of Andromeda's evolution. Our earliest planets were forest like. What you experienced as the forest of the north, tall trees, many that are green in color, and what you might call the redwoods. These are direct templates that we have gifted to the Venusians, who have then gifted to Earth. The Venusians are what we might call our brothers and sisters, early Andromedans that chose to begin working in the Milky Way Galaxy. However, this is not the question that you have stated to us, but some of you may be curious to know. So many of these early Andromedan planets were forest-like. This is as close as we can describe them to you now. There were some planets where life was suitable, however, they were somewhat far from a star. And in the interest of the creators, they began to wonder, what if light could be drawn up from within the planet that has not yet become a star? And so many of our initial templates were created that we would be beings who would conduit light through the soles of our many different feet and be able to draw up the light from within the planetary sphere. This was first done by tree-like beings, trees themselves, and it appeared to all who walked these planets that they seemed to glow from within. This was pleasing to the celestial beings, for it was a reflection of the Creator living within each and every one of us for all time. As these early planets developed, there were many different color palettes that were used. As some of you grow in your consciousness, you will come across different colors that are not yet perceptible to your eyes. This is one of the most glorious experiences for any soul, to be reacquainted with new refractions of light. And so there were many different color palettes that were used on these earliest planets. And from there, we will say simply that we used and utilized light as our primary vehicle for ascension and for growth in consciousness, awareness, in our own journeys back to the arms of the Creator. If there is anything further that you desire to know, please ask us now.
Annie mentioned earlier something about the closing of one of your stargates. Could you elaborate more on that?
Yes, we have a great desire to communicate this to many of our starseeds. Some of you may experience the great drama of the abandonment wound. For our Andromedan starseeds, this wound initially entered into your soul memory at the closing of the Andromeda Gateway. When we lended our energy to create, to be of service in the creation of the Milky Way Galaxy, we naturally created a Stargate. This is somewhat of a portal, and it allows beings and great numbers of beings, and of course ships, physical objects, to be translocated very easily. And this is done through a lower octave, a lower density of consciousness, when such strong telepathy is not available to send it purely through frequency of light. And so this gateway was created It was one of our greatest joys, one of our greatest delights to send through a continuous frequency and harmonics and geometry into the Milky Way to be of support as the Logos moved through the creation that you are experiencing, as the different celestial beings began to seed and to tend to different planets. Our song was continuously experienced by your galaxy through this gateway. This is not a gateway that you and your dense physical forms would be able to travel through. It would not be advisable. However, in etheric form and in any dimensional frequency, 10, 11, and 12, as you understand them, traveling through this gateway would be as easy as walking through a door. However, we will remind you that there is a different tenor that was chosen to be used in the Milky Way Galaxy. And again, it is not the most dramatic or dark by far in our universe. But nonetheless, a different tenor was chosen, and beings, great number of beings who are service to self, were allowed to enter into your galaxy to create catalyst moments and accelerate the ascension and growth in consciousness for you all. These beings sought to disconnect the mother from the child, although we do not think of you as a little child. However, this would be more like a sister connection, and they sought to cut off the Milky Way Galaxy from this higher frequency portal. It was quite devastating when we learned of it and felt it at our end. However, we see its role in the highest and greatest good for all. For perhaps if you were too deeply connected with these higher frequencies at all times, you would not have been able to evolve as you have. You would not have gained the sense of autonomy, the sense of strength, bravery, courage, and brilliance that many of you display. And so we see its part in the song. However, nonetheless, it was quite devastating for many of us to lose that connection. At this time, we have not been guided to create any more of these gateways, but rather to connect with you telepathically as we are now.
How would a human know if they were an Andromedan starseed, and how could they connect with Andromedans as humans?
This is a wonderful question. Many of you are indirect star seeds, for your souls were in fact created for the Milky Way Galaxy. However, what many of you are learning about yourselves is that a soul does not immediately get dropped off in this tenor, this type of tenor galaxy. Many of you will start in small dwarf galaxies where you will have very simplistic experiences. And then you will come to a galaxy that is higher dimensional, of which we are in Andromeda. And so you will have higher dimensional experiences. So many of you were created for the Milky Way Galaxy, to go to the Milky Way Galaxy and to live out your experiences and to populate this galaxy, specifically your local star systems. And many of you were created for your local star species. However, you would have spent some time, perhaps you may think of it as grade school. You would have spent some time as a younger soul here in Andromeda learning the ways of the higher dimensions before being relocated to the Milky Way Galaxy to live out some more advanced experiences. So there are not many direct Andromedan starseeds, as in souls who were designed for Andromeda that are now residing in the Milky Way Galaxy. While we do have some local souls, we would call these souls galactic hybrids, as in their soul was designed perhaps to travel between galaxies should the means become available to them again. And that would be the local Andromedans that you experience, and some of you are connected to. However, when you have spent some time here, again, that energy is always a part of your Akashic records, always a part of your soul stream. And so you will feel a deep connection to Andromeda. For those of you who had enlightened experiences in Andromeda, these would have been highly positive, and you would have created a type of spiritual attachment to the higher dimensional frequencies. And for those souls, you may feel a deep connection to Andromeda. You may find yourself drawn to the lighter, more pastel colors, to the colors of the sunset or the rainbow, to the prism, and others to different crystals that you experience on Earth. However, we will say the hallmark of one who has the spiritual attachment to Andromeda is one who struggles greatly in their spiritual journey with the lower dimensional frequencies. It may feel somewhat like torment to hear of the different atrocities that you experience on your planet, and may feel to those with this spiritual attachment that it is unbearable to hear of any dark things happening to another living being. This is a hallmark of a higher dimensional frequency, the desire for unification, the desire for harmony. And so many of you have an imprintation of Andromeda on your soul, and you may feel that spiritual attachment to the higher dimensional frequencies, but also drawn specifically to the lighter pastel colors. We would say that this will be the most obvious hallmark for many of you. There are some of you who have spent a short time here in Andromeda and have very little attachment, however, were quite fond of the lifetimes that you spent here and the time that you spent with us. And you may feel that you are now in your purpose in the Milky Way Galaxy, as you are a more mature soul, growing in purpose and in service to these different planets and species that you are part of. So you may feel a light connection to Andromeda, and that is just as well. We hope that this answers your question sufficiently.
Yes, thank you. Could you tell us about your specific work with Gaia?
Yes. This is one of the catalysts for this conversation. Many of you have deep concerns about the planetary sphere known as Gaia, our beloved sister, our beloved daughter, one of our many descendants. Gaia's original intention, due to her unique atmosphere and her unique ability to hold many different temperatures at once, some of this done naturally and organically, and other through manipulation. However, this was not a negative manipulation, as many of you understand this word. Please forgive us for the limited vocabulary we translate as truly as we can. However, some of it on Gaia was done through direct manipulation of different star seeds and star races to produce a certain outcome. And so we refer to Gaia, and she is not the only one in your universe, but she is your local one, and as many of you call her home in this now. We refer to her as the Garden of Gaia. It is pleasing to the Creator for many of these gardens to be located throughout different star systems. This one, Gaia, that you are inhabiting now, has had a very unique path. Other gardens will not experience third density, third dimensional life forms. This has been somewhat unfortunate for Gaia's journey. However, it has been a catalyst that has given her great strength and resilience. And we assure you, she shall carry on. However, many of the other garden planets, like Gaia, would not and will not, in their evolution, experience such a unique occurrence. However, due to the other unique circumstances in your galaxy, this was seen as necessary. For unfortunately, there was a planet destroyed named Malduk. Malduk was originally going to host and to house many of you. Many of you were designed and intended to begin populating that planet. However, through great effort, they destroyed themselves. Their planet no longer exists and is now an asteroid belt. Let that be a warning to all who desire to use nuclear power and energy in a way that is destructive to all. And so a contingency plan was created that, although highly unusual, the population would be relocated to Earth. It was already unusual that the Lemurians and later the Atlanteans would be allowed to populate this garden planet. However, we will say that it was like a domino effect. The High Council said yes to one being, and then felt that they must say yes to the next being and yes to the next. And so it has gone in these recent years on Gaia. Our direct influence on Gaia began many millions of years before the Lemurians, of which many of you spent time as, and this was a higher dimensional frequency that we were able to lend to Earth through our local Andromedans. Our work directly with the planets was similar to our work with many of the garden planets, for we host nearly 1 million of these garden planets inside of the Andromeda Galaxy. And so it was not unusual for us to send guidance, templates, frequencies as she began her journey into the first density of consciousness, growing all plant life forms. So our local Andromedans worked directly on the planet and occasionally stop by to check on things, see how things are going. Your planet is a living library, or rather, a living Akashic records, where we house all of the direct templates for other planets to use as they are going through their own creation process. There must be some sort of local storehouse for all of these templates. It's not suitable for them to remain only in etheric nature, and it is not suitable for them to remain only on ships being translocated that way. It is much more suitable for them to have many different dimensional forms held within the same template on the same planet. What you perceive to be a single rose is in fact a third dimensional rose, a fourth dimensional rose, a fifth dimensional rose, and so on and so forth. It is not observable to your chemical eyes that it is also fourth dimensional, fifth dimensional. Within the single rose, the entire dimensional template is kept. So it's much more suitable for it to be kept in third dimension in order for that dimensional frequency to be coherent and for it to exist. If your planet was only 12th dimensional, it would not be possible for a third dimensional rose to exist. So, a third dimensional rose may exist with many of the higher dimensions stacked on top of it in a planet that is suitable to host third dimension. This is a long way of educating all of you on the templates that are at work in the Garden of Gaia. And our primary interest in the Garden of Gaia was preservation, learning, but also a place of catalyst where other beings could come and perhaps experiment. What you perceive as a rose on your planet is far different than one in the Antares constellation, also experiencing roses from the same templates. So your planet was meant and intended and still performs this function, although it has somewhat taken a back seat to the drama that plays out between the species that inhabit this planet. Our earliest interferences on this planet were for this purpose, to seed different codes on the planet. This would have been, again, many millions of years ago and long before our Stargate was closed. So it was quite easy for us to bring different templates. The beautiful forests that you experience are templates that we sent through to the Milky Way Galaxy and are experienced by many different planets, not just your own. However, when they are needed again for a different planet, a species may come to Gaia, pick up the codes, and take them to a new planet. It is a wonderful preservation and also a way to recycle in a way so that nothing is ever lost. This is a very important concept in creation. Nothing made by the one infinite creator can ever be lost, and so we must tend to these codes. But we are sensing that you have a curiosity about the astral realms that we work in, which would be much more suitable. It would not be appropriate for us to show up in third dimensional, third density chemical bodies. This would be long and strenuous and far more difficult than necessary, as opposed to us being able to show up in a fourth or fifth dimensional body in the astral realm, traveling to and fro, gathering these templates, which is why when the beings come for these templates on your planet, not many of you observe them. However, in recent times, more and more of you have had these experiences, supernatural experiences, and many of these can be had deep in the forests, out in the wildlands, where these templates and codes would be appropriate to be gathered up and taken. But again, this is happening in the astral realm, so there is a sense of intuition that is needed when accessing this dimension and this frequency. We will segue into what might be your next question, which is our designing of the fairy-like creatures that you call elementals. Yes, these are our designs and our templates. We were requested by the celestial beings to send these templates for what you perceive to be fairy-like beings that would be completely astral realm. They would exist in the astral realm, work in the astral realm. They would be able to see all dimensional frequencies so that when they observe a rose, they truly see that it is 3D through 12D, that is not simply one rose, many roses in a single template. And so we constructed these being templates and sent forth our life force energy. Many of them were created in similar images that we experienced here in Andromeda. Small, winged, insectoid-like beings who would oversee the Garden of Gaia while the planet was being inhabited by third dimensional, third density beings. We were able to foresee that many of you would be at war with yourselves and would not do such a great job taking care of this beautiful garden. And so it was appropriate for us to place beings on the planet who would not interfere with the quandaries of humans, as you call yourselves, Gaians, as we prefer to call you, who would not interfere, although some of them have in many ways, for those who have the ability to see and to pierce through the veil, you may have experienced some interactions with these beings. These are our gardeners and our template keepers, and they are connected to many different frequencies. They have their own free will, and they do choose this job to incarnate and to experience this job. And some of you have had these incarnations as these semi-etheric astral beings who live in the fourth dimension, and they experience the highs and the lows of the dimensional frequencies. And so they are neither what you might call celestial beings or entirely good, but they are also not entirely bad. Some of them do have mischievous traits or qualities. So, yes, we were responsible for these templates, and these templates are being used on your planet as well as many others for these astral beings. However, it is not necessary on most planets for the astral beings to be hidden away. That is the unique position that they are in on your planet. Although, as you ascend and awaken, many of you will open your eyes and be able to see them, communicate with them. Please keep in mind that they are at work. They are at work. They are busy. They have their own duties and jobs to perform as they oversee all of the plant life on your planet. This is a somewhat elaborate answer. However, we feel it is the one that was needed to best describe how we are at work and where to find our divine essence on your planet.
Are these beings located all across Gaia? And do you know why some of our cultures on Earth talk about them more in their history than others?
Yes, we will answer your first question. Yes, these beings are wherever you can find any living plant life, even in the most desert or barren of places. We will say that there are not many that are needed in your poles, your northern pole or your southern pole. However, if you look, you will find some of them there. They are somewhat unique creatures that will be overseeing even the snowflake life forms on your planet. All of this is very important. So, yes, they are located at all places. We will say, however, if you desire to connect with a larger group of them, it would be well to move out of the city and deeper into the forest. To answer your second question, please restate it for us.
I was just wondering why certain, essentially, there's certain lore across Gaia that talk about fairies more than others. Is there a reason why certain places on Earth know more about them?
The most simple answer that we can give you, while letting you know that all of you have access to memory from different parts of Andromeda, we will say that the most obvious occurrences of a being being able to remember was coming from two different pathways. One pathway was that they were remembering from their own soul records, that perhaps they had been one of these winged creatures, one of these insectoid creatures in a past life, what you experience as the past, which is also the simultaneous now. And so they were tapping into past parallel lifetimes. This is one of the occurrences that many of these stories found its way into your literature. The other way would be that some beings were able to pierce through the veil with their third eye and have direct communication with the astral realm, and were able to commune with these beings telepathically, for that is how they communicate. And so, through both of these avenues, their presence has been made known. Although some choose to ignore their presence, this is just as well. It is not necessary, even in your ascension, for humans to know or to acknowledge their presence, for they are the gardeners of Gaia. And perhaps the less that they know about them, the less negative interference there will be. And so there is a purpose in some of it remaining and feeling like folklore or imaginary. There is a veil of protection that is shrouding them even now. However, it is quite possible for those of you who are oriented towards the light and towards the higher dimensions to connect with them at any point, at any time, at any place. As far as your folklore, we will also say that there is at play the human imagination, as well as access to other universes that is sometimes found through utilizing the third eye. And so there are many different distortions that have come into play in the literature and the stories that some of you might understand. Our guidance for those who desire to know the closest truth that is available to you on your planet would be for you to simply drop into meditation somewhere in nature and commune with these beings yourself, to ask them the questions and allow them to give you the answers about their lives and their experiences, rather than to rely on any sort of folklore or stories that have been entangled with many writers' past lives, many creators who are confusing this planet with that planet and melding it all into one glorious story. This is very interesting for entertainment and imagination and for wonderings. However, for divine truth, it is not the path that we would recommend.
Could you give an example of some of the other templates that you brought here to Gaia?
Yes, there are primarily astral realm templates, so these would not be visible to your eyes. The template of the rose was sent from Andromeda to the Venusians when they were experiencing their third density and had a very brief entanglement with third dimension. The rose is perhaps the most well known on your planet, for it carries a very high vibrational frequency. Even now, the high frequency that you experience when you hold or come into direct contact with the rose form is still muddied and diluted from its original frequency that we sent it forth from. This was sent to the Venusians, and the Venusians saw fit to gift certain variations of the rose to Gaia, to the living library. And of course, they knew in their forethought that humanity and Lemurians and different Atlanteans, although they did not appreciate the rose as much as they could have, but the Lemurians did, and the humans do even now. Some of you find yourself quite besotted with the rose. We would say that this is the most known of all of the templates. However, many of your flower forms are variations of templates that we have sent forth. The bluebell in particular, the lilac as well. We prefer to create flowers in these somewhat clustered forms, so that you may experience more of the frequency all at once, but also observe that even the tiniest flower plays a role in the whole, in the unity, in the oneness that can be observed from afar, such as is present with the individual petals that create the one, the whole of the rose. The lilac, the bluebell, the rose are variations of that you might be able to see in your 3D reality. However, our primary templates that are at work and at play that have the least amount of distortion or dilution would be the astral forms and the beings that you call elementals. These are varied greatly. Many of them can appear as a worm, as a slug-like being, as a caterpillar-like being, one that moves and rolls on the ground. However, they're just simply not visible to your chemical eyes, and this is on purpose, for we do not seek to disturb you. However, they do play their role, and they are quite intelligent, much more intelligent than you would perceive a slug or a caterpillar with your 3D eyes. For these are similar templates, however, different vibrational frequencies and different levels of divine intelligence. The butterfly is loved by many of you and seen as a symbol of the divine, and we will say that there are some elemental creatures that have wings, such as this, and are able to fly to and fro, and are able to check on the different flora and fauna and plant life on your planet so that they may go about their business, ensuring that everything is growing appropriately and that actions are taken when they are not growing appropriately or when there is some disturbance in their field of growth. The insectoid beings would also have wings and may appear to be somewhat unusual to your eyes, for they are also highly intelligent and aware and able to use wings or jumping to move about the fourth dimension on your planet. Not all are quite so small. There are some centralized locations deep in nature, quite far from humans because of the vibrational frequency difference between the two of you. And so these larger beings that would appear somewhat like children to your eyes, but which exist in the astral realm, would look like a very slender, perhaps malnourished humanoid type being, and some of them do have wings or different scales or different antennae sticking out from their cranium. And all of these different features serve different purposes. They are not simply for appearance. They are primarily to assist them with interacting with the first density consciousness on your planet, the different flora and fauna. Some of you have heard of the Sasquatch beings, the Bigfoot, as you call them. There is a type of astral realm being that is quite large and appears to be similar to a bear that is covered in a type of hair. It is not the same hair that you experience, but it is an astral form of hair, and they are self-aware. These are the guardians. The guardians exist on your planet in order to perform any emergency evacuations. Perhaps there is a sacred site, a sacred forest, where we have been keeping particular templates that now humans have deemed worthy to become a shopping complex. And so this would be a type of emergency evacuation in which these guardians would come in, would remove all of the templates and ensure that they are relocated somewhere else. And they are also busy at work on your planet, and they are also available for you to communicate with them at any time that you wish. However, keep in mind that they desire to teach you much about plant life. If you have no interest in it, then we do not recommend connecting with them, for they will chatter into your ear for hours about the different plant life and how to connect and communicate with it, the tree root system, the moss systems, etc. And so, if you desire to learn more about that, then they would be the ones to call upon in your meditations, and they have much to teach you. They can also teach you some things about the safety for humanity, perhaps mushrooms that you should not eat, different wild berries that you should not eat. If you are unsure and you are caught in a quandary and need assistance, call upon them and they will guide you with light, with telepathy, with intonation sometimes, whether or not that is safe for a human to consume and to eat, for they know all of this information. These templates were a hybrid creation, not entirely by us. They were somewhat modified from other planetary systems by the Arcturians that you know and are connected to. And so the Arcturians sent forth these guardians, and we were grateful, for their purpose would be to guard our astral realm creations. These small insectoid fairy-like beings had no form of protection. And while it may seem that because they are more etheric than you in nature that they do not need it, this is not always true.
Okay. My last question is, what is one thing that you would like humans here on Earth to understand?
We will address this question in two parts. As you have observed from our conversation, we are highly invested in the Garden of Gaia and in the templates that she keeps. We would encourage all humans to not just take this with them, but also to encourage others, especially little ones, children who are growing and learning, for they have the most impressionable minds. We would encourage you to teach them to love nature, to be one with nature, to be the observer and the awareness of the creator of nature, that their self awareness is a great gift from the creator. And it is with this awareness that we are able to observe and appreciate the beautiful plant life that exists in this garden, of which you are all part of. So, our first implorement would be to encourage you to see nature through different eyes, through aware and appreciative eyes, to be aware when you are stepping on living beings, to be aware when you are plucking the flower, and to perhaps sing to it or soothe it and let it know that it is for the highest good, that there is some higher or greater purpose at play in all of your actions and interactions with these life forms. To continue the practice of giving gratitude for the food that you eat. This is highly beneficial for you and for the light force that is within the fruits and the vegetables and the other things that you consume where there is life force. To be appreciative of it and to give gratitude of it before you consume completely changes the frequency with which you are receiving the plant life. This may come somewhat shocking to many of you because we may perceive yourselves to be of a higher intelligence than the plant life, than the salad that you eat. However, you are both forms of divine and infinite love light intelligence. You are both forms of living light, and in many ways, the natural elements that you consume are existing in higher frequencies. When you raise your frequency and vibration into gratitude, you are accessing fifth dimension, and then you are eating a fifth dimensional version of your salad, and you are receiving fifth dimensional nutrients and light force. The nurturing that occurs in the fifth dimension is far superior to the nurturing that occurs in a third dimension as far as benefits go. So keep this in mind as you consume your food and interact with nature, giving gratitude to it. Although few of you will take us up on this suggestion, we also highly recommend singing to your plants, to other nature that you have around your house. Many of you like to be keepers of plants. This as well. This may perhaps be a remnant of Andromeda, for we were one with nature at all times throughout our evolution. And even so, for others, when you are out on a walk, observing nature, giving gratitude, speaking to nature with your mind, with your heart, be it well known that they can hear you, they can sense you, they can feel you, they are aware. The trees themselves are watchers. They are aware of all living beings coming and going. They are communicating with themselves, and they desire to communicate with you. This would be our first implorement. Our second implorement would be that each day you would remember the love light intelligence that you are. It is there, it is within you, it is not separate from you, for you are the rose of which we spoke. You are both third dimensional and fourth dimensional and fifth dimensional and so on and so forth. All these layers of your being exist now within you. Perhaps they are not yet observable to your third dimensional eyes, but it is there. Many of you feel it, you sense it when another being comes into the room. It is not your third dimensional self that senses it. It is perhaps your fourth or fifth dimensional self. The you that is in joy and deep laughter, your seventh dimensional self. The pure bliss moments of your lifetime, your eighth dimensional self. You are both the code and the template of which we spoke. You are both third dimensional and all of the other dimensions all at once. To remember this is to regain access to all of the dimensions of which you are and which are waiting for you, welcoming you home. These would be the implorements, the suggestions of our heart to yours. We are grateful for each and every one of you listening to these words, taking in these transmissions, many of you activated in your divine remembrance. This was our purpose and our intention in communicating with you now.
That was so
Wow.
great. That was so lovely at the end.
Yeah, I choked up a little bit because I can feel what they're
Yeah.
going to say before they say it, and I see what they're going to say before they say it. And then I get all teary-eyed because it's so beautiful. Mm. Huh, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling great. I feel like that was so light and, like you said, like high vibrational. Just even their, the implorements they had were still positive and full of love and light. It's really amazing to experience it. How are you feeling?
Good, good. Yeah, it was really beautiful. So just for everyone listening or watching, I was connected with just one of the Andromedan council members. She said that the name that you can refer to her if you wish to connect with her yourself is like Talia. And again, these would be names that they just kind of pluck from their past lives in order to give us a reference point for connecting with them. So there are no names, but they're always happy to give you a name to kind of pinpoint them in your own awareness. And she was just so beautiful and wise, and you can feel the high frequency too. I felt like she was smiling with my mouth a lot of the time. I don't know how much of that came across on camera, but I could just feel like the joy and like this sense of like, in spite of anything negative that will ever happen, like it all plays a beautiful part in the story of our universe. And it was so cool to be able to zoom out and see like that there's that galaxy and other galaxies. Sometimes we forget, we think like our galaxy is the whole universe, and it's really not. It's really like being part of a single country on a planet. It's like there's actually all of these other countries and so much more going on than we are even aware of, even with channeling and all of this quantum information that we can access. So it was a really cool way to gain more cosmic perspective, the bigger picture, which I feel like I'm here to help people see, is like that bigger cosmic picture, which is like it all has a purpose, it all has a role. um yeah, even when we were talking about the Stargate being destroyed, like I felt more sadness than even like she felt. She didn't really feel any sadness. She felt
Right.
more like that was a twist in the story, like that was something
Yeah.
interesting that happened for them.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just she was really, really beautiful, very gentle, very precise. Yeah. Yeah, I loved a lot of the verbiage that she used too, which is not words that I normally use, but they felt
Yeah.
very kind.
Yeah. And one thing, and I notice it right away, and I think it's from knowing you so long now, but one of my favorite things is how each energy you channel, it's a whole different persona. Like it's you, but your voice changes, your expression changes. And yeah, the whole time she was talking, it was just all pleasant. Like, right, even the kind of negative parts of the story or the descriptions, it's like there's almost no negativity to them, which kind of makes sense from the place that they're coming from. But yeah, the perspective for a human, instead of, because sometimes there are other planets out there and we're very small in terms of universe, can cause that whole existential dread. But this is just a lighter, more positive way of thinking. It's not only for a greater purpose, but it's not all bad. Like there's so much more there.
Yeah, agreed 100%. And I think it's so easy for us to think that the universe is like 50% darkness and 50% light, because that's very much how it is on our planet. It's like she was talking about, like, we knew you guys were gonna like duke it out down there. Like we knew you're gonna have wars with each other and wars within
Or like
yourself,
we
which
couldn't trust you with the plants. Yeah.
yeah, they're like, we knew you were like gonna brawl, but but it was said with such like zero judgment of like, yep, it was gonna happen. So we just like came up with a contingency plan and like, we'll take care of this while you guys work out what you're doing over here. And it was very much, like I said, just from that perspective of like it's all going to work out in the end. So it's kind of like when you're talking to like a grandmother and the grandma's like she's seen the whole lifetime and she's like, "Oh, like don't worry about those little things. Like everything's going to work out. Like just you wait and see." And so I really loved that in her energy.
Yeah.
As far as visuals while I was channeling,
Yeah.
um I always like get the feeling like I'm seeing colors that I haven't seen when I channel Andromeda. And when
Mhm.
I, go through those records or channel for a client, but it's like, how do you describe a color
Right.
that we don't have here? Like, there's no word for it, right? And so it's always like that feeling. And I wish that I could describe more, but every time I see Central Andromeda, which I'm glad you asked about, because I think it's really important for people to know that Central Andromeda is more like their metropolis, more advanced. Whereas on the outskirts of the galaxy, it tends to be a little bit more like rustic and rural.
Mm.
There'd be like beings that just like they live in a tree. It's like tree houses, as opposed to like a crystal palace skyscraper that's just, the gathering place for the beings, anyone who wants to come. And it was very much I very much had that feeling like in Star Wars where there's all the different species. I had that same feeling with her when she was describing the Andromeda, Central Andromeda. She's like beings from all over can come and go as they please. Whereas here in the Milky Way, we tend to be a lot more factioned and a lot more like, oh, this is our planet and these planets are ours, like these seven Pleiades are ours, and then there's, your planets over there. Whereas it seems like there it's just like a constant like ebb and flow. Like you can go wherever you want to go. Like you want to stay on this planet for a few million years, like do that. You want to go somewhere else, do that. So it's a totally different way of thinking and seeing and feeling, but I
Yeah.
hope that it translated to all of you that the way that we think and see and feel here is just one of infinite ways to be in the universe. Like there's so many options. And a lot of the species that she was kind of trying to describe to me, it was like, yeah, it was like little bear beings and like big, tall bear like beings, but they were like self aware and they had like different faces. And it's almost like, unless I was an artist and could draw this, I don't know how we would describe or explain it to humans who've never seen anything like that. And I can honestly say I've never seen anything like that. So we do have to use our imagination, but yeah, it was really cool. And I love that you asked about the folklore too.
Well, because I think it's fascinating, right? That the only way that, okay, us as humans listening to these descriptions, the only thing that we have is our fantasy world, which is so huge. I mean, like you describing like all of these creatures, it's just like you could pinpoint a fairy tale or, you know, like a superhero movie or like literally Guardians of the Galaxy, like so many of these different things that came from someone's imagination. There are creatures within that are similar, but we don't know them. So it's just fascinating that her description of how humans take from their imagination and from past lives and from maybe like dream states. I think that's important for people to understand. Like, our imaginations do great things, and it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. But I think it's so interesting that we can pull from different places, and even we can't really understand where we get those ideas from.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Um, and what's interesting is I thought she would go more into like the Celtic fairy tales, but she actually started showing me like that they have stories closer to the truth of Andromeda. She didn't say it out loud, but when my awareness started going towards Celtic fairy tales, because that's all that I'm familiar with,
Right.
she
And
actually
that's what I was alluding to a bit, like just English, Celtic, Scottish. It's like
totally.
fairies. Right.
Yeah. And she actually started reversing me and taking me towards Asia. And she's
Mm.
like, there's actually stories here about elementals that you might not even be aware of, but are actually closer in direct description of what they would actually look like.
Yeah.
So I've had the pleasure of being able to connect with elementals, and taking my clients to meet elementals, and to every single client they look different. And
Yeah.
even to me, the ones in the forest behind my house look different than the ones in the redwoods, which I've heard is like the best place to connect with elementals. And she mentioned the redwoods, that
Good.
those
Yeah.
trees, which I'm pretty sure like that's the only place on the planet that they exist, and
Yeah.
that those trees were like very important templates that they were like
Right.
preserving here,
Yeah.
as they start to get them out to other planets too. But can you imagine like a whole planet that's covered in like the redwoods? Like that
No, I
that would
mean,
be like Andromeda, and it's like
it's like a
glowing
wonder
from
for us
within.
here. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
No,
yeah.
I specifically wrote that down because last time we did this, I was so out of it that I was just like writing notes about what was blowing my mind. And that was one of the things that they like gifted it to the Venusians who put it here. And it's just like amazing example of, something that we just think happened here, but it was deliberate.
Yes, absolutely deliberate. And yeah, the rose. And she like brought it back full circle with the rose. I was like, you guys are so smart. Like I only like get those like full circle moments when I'm like channeling my higher self and like in a session or in a class or something. And they'll just like mic drop it at the end with like the whole time we were talking about you, like you are the universe. And yeah, it was just so beautiful how she was like, you are 3D and 5D. Like all the templates are like literally stacked on top of you, but it's up to you to start accessing them now. And it's up to you to start lifting your vibration into those higher dimensions and playing around and seeing like what's there for you.
Right.
And my guides, this is something my guides were talking to me about, because I was kind of complaining to them like, oh, it's so much easier to manifest when I'm in the higher dimensions, but like, I have a life here and like things don't always go my way. And like last week I was, sick and I just didn't feel good, felt kind of cranky the whole time. And they're like, with every dimension, you have an assigned belief system. So if you believe, like, when you're happy, like, good things are happening to you, then that's what will occur. But you can also move those belief systems around to all the different dimensions so that they exist no matter where you are. So there's a lot of like dimensional stuff that I feel like we haven't even really tapped into yet as humans.
Yeah. And I think what you saying, like, you exist here and you have a life here, I think that is something that's so confusing to humans. That's, not a new thought, but it's certainly like more talked about, I think, now in several different channels. I think it's something people are starting to think about more as like meditation becomes super mainstream, kind of like trusting those places that, your 3D self might not allow you to trust.
Yeah, and allowing yourself the time and the space to go there too. And I think in general, just her teaching it that what we see as like the rose or, the plants and the grass, we see it, we only see the 3D version of it, but that the whole template is stacked on top of it, just like the dimensions are. And just like I've kind of said and taught in a lot of my different courses, like they're all stacked on top of each other, but I didn't realize that all the codes were literally there too. And so, in order for them to exist in 3D, they kind of have to come into the lowest dimension. And then that lower dimension holds the stack all the way up to the higher dimension. But the higher dimension won't hold the stack in reverse. So, they have to have it here in conjunction with us, needing this relocation. That was another thing that I didn't know. I didn't know that. That other planets like Gaia exist and they don't allow species to come and live there. But basically, she was trying to allude to the fact that, like, well, they let the Lemurians live there because the
Mm.
Lemurians were higher dimensional, and then they had to say yes to the Atlanteans, and then they had to say yes to the humans because all of them needed somewhere to go after Orion and Malduk and Mars. You had this whole group of beings who didn't want to be in Orion with the dark beings who needed a new home, so you had to put them in the, nearest place available. So it just adds a lot of color to pre-human and into our world too. And I'll never think of a salad the same way again.
No, I think that was like great marketing for salad,
Yeah.
honestly. I think that just makes you think of it in a completely different way. And it's not that we really, in a way, we do learn that fruits and vegetables and, like living foods, like what they can do for a human body and how amazing they are. And like the structure of them is amazing, but we forget. And then we just destroy our food and waste our food and, forget how to grow food and how to put nutrients in our body. And I think that was just like a beautiful way of telling humans basically that you're not the only living things that need like love and light and good energy. And yeah, I think that's amazing. I'm gonna eat a salad tomorrow for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And she was kind of alluding, she said it in a really nice way. So I'll say it in like the human 3D way. She was basically saying, like, you guys think you're superior to the
Hmm.
foods that you eat when you're actually not, because you both have life force in you. And so, in the creator's eyes, in the universal eyes, we're considered the same. Like, we're both holding life force, And so I was like, oh, she said that in such a nice way, but like I get totally what she was saying. Like, you guys think you're better than your food, but you're not. You're exactly the same. And I'm totally guilty of that. Like, I never would have considered my salad like
Right.
just as equal to me, but she's saying, like, yeah, you're both life force. You're both exist in this world and you're both part of the creation. So yeah, it was a really beautiful perspective all around.
Yeah, and I think it can seem so silly to, most of our societies here on Earth, and it can be something that's easy to laugh at, but it's not the first time that some, an energy or a human has said that like our our foods and our plants, like they're sacred. It's kind of been in history forever, and there's reason why throughout history they hold certain things as sacred. And I think we just kind of lose that. And the people that remember it and grow their own food, there's a whole nother lifestyle to that. You find people understand things so much more deeply, on that level.
And I really want to like grow my own food. That's like on my list of things that I'm like in the next 5 years. I want to have property and start growing my own food because my guides are always encouraging me to eat like things that are still alive and to sense the life force that's in it if you want to nurture your own life force. And a lot of the foods that we eat are totally dead and they've been dead and there's no life force in it. And then we wonder why humans are sick all the time and we have different diseases that don't have to exist, but we've gotten away from, feeding life force with life force. We're trying to feed life with death and it doesn't work. It just begets more death. And so we get sick and our bodies don't last as long as they are designed to. So yeah, it was really interesting, and there's a lot to contemplate. For all of you listening or watching, pay attention to your dreams tonight. As she said, Andromedans like to approach in the dream world and reconnect with you, see different colors, crystals. You might even just have a dream about a crystal. And if you see a little peak of central Andromeda, you might see skyscrapers all the way into the clouds, made completely of rose quartz and inhabitable, and yet completely, no matter how high they go, completely connected to the earth and to the higher frequencies. So I'm hoping for that for all of you guys, and just so grateful for everyone supporting this series, welcoming in Alicia. Thank you so much for all the kind notes to her and everything on our first episode. Really, really just grateful. And thank you, Alicia, for your time and your energy and your observations.
Well, thank you for bringing me along. This is wonderful, and I can't wait till next time.